Hello, and welcome to the Digit Guy Education series of After Effects tutorials with your host, Robert Smith. In this video, we're going to set up something called compositions. Now, I want to talk about compositions. They are the backbone of any video you make in After Effects. And what they basically are, what a composition is just simply a period of time. For example, we're going to make a 15-second video, but we're not going to have a 15-second timeline. We're going to break that down into a series of smaller areas, maybe 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. And then we're going to put them all together on another timeline to make one video. So that's basically how you work in After Effects. You break things down into smaller sections and then you get stuck in. So let's do that. The first thing I want to do is create a composition. I'm going to go to Composition, New Composition, like this, or Apple N will do the same thing, or Control N on the PC. Okay, now in this composition settings dialog box, it's quite complicated really if you're seeing it for the first time. But let me just take you through it. It's quite simple really. The preset here, these are all the presets. Now look at this. These are extremely, there's so many of them. Which one do you choose? Okay, there's only a couple we use here. These are more for television. Some of these are aimed at television. We're really aiming our stuff at the web. So we're looking at about, I reckon, okay, for this exercise, actually this is not going for the web, this is going to Instagram. So none of those presets will work, none of those are Instagram. They need to be 640 pixels. Now we work in pixels all the time, 640 by 640. Now that's a pretty small file to make a video, but it'll look good on most phones. Okay, so 640 by 640 pixels, like that. We want square pixels. You tend never to change that. There's all sorts of things there going on. Again, mainly television based. We're just going to use square pixels. Our frame rate will be 25 frames per second, which is the PAL rate, the TV rate in Australia. If you're in America, it's 29.97. I don't know why that is. Somebody slipped up there. Okay, so 25 frames per second. Now, this thing down here is quite a complicated little thing. It's called a SMPTE, S-M-P-T-E time code. Now, you don't need to know that, but what you need to know is to work with this. This will give you how long your video is going to be, or your composition in this case. Okay, now it's these numbers with the colons in between. The first one is hours, the second one is minutes, the third one is seconds, and the fourth one is frames. Okay, let me just show you how to use that. And go in here and try and go between those numbers like that. That's a bit hard to do. There's a great shortcut. In After Effects, the number 100 equals 1 second. So if I want a 15-second timeline, for example, in this case, let's make it 15 seconds. We can always make it longer than we think it should be. We can always trim it later. Okay, to do that, I'm just going to grab this, select the whole lot, and just type in 1500. It's just so much easier to do. So that's, again, 100 times 15. That'll give you a 15-second timeline. Let's just review what this composition setting dialog box does. First of all, it gives us a size, which is 640 by 640 pixels. It gives us a frame rate, how fast, how many frames per second we're going to be looking at, and a duration in seconds, how long. In this case, it's 1500 or 15 seconds. I'm going to click OK like that. As you can see, we now have a square composition area here like that, which is perfect for Instagram. We have a timeline down the bottom down here. We have over in our project window, we have a thing called Comp 1. Okay, so I want to rename that. Now, After Effects is a bit funny the way you name things. You just don't double click on it. What you do is you select it over here in your project window, press the return key, like that, and let's call it Intro, like that, and press return again. So that's the technique. Select it, press return, type the name, and then press return again. It's the only app I know that does it that way. What's going on there, After Effects? Okay, now what I want to do is I want to add some typography. This first thing, part of our video, is going to be a bit of type. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the type tool up here, like this. I'm going to click on the window. Now watch what happens when I click on the window. You'll notice straight away down here I get a layer, or empty text layer, and I should have a cursor. So I'm just going to type in the word design. Okay, where is that word? There it is there. I'm just going to select that and type in D-E-S-I-G-N, design, like that. Now I know see that it's going to be 385 point, but I've worked that out before. Okay, the font's Fairview, and there it is. It sets type, much as you would expect, on its own layer like that, and it names the layer after what's on the layer, which is pretty cute. Now, this is the crux of all After Effects. Everything you drag onto a stage in After Effects has things called properties. And one of them is this little thing down here. It's called the anchor point. Let me show you how you get at these properties. I'm just going to drag that up a little bit so I can use this thing called the twirler, technically known as the twirler, this little arrow here like that on this layer. And you see you've got two options. You've got text and transform. We're interested in the transform. I'm just going to open that up too. And you notice now it starts to look a little bit technical and scary. You've got numbers over here and things you probably didn't. Oh, you might recognize some of these things: position, scale, rotation, opacity. They're the sort of things you might use in the print world. This anchor point too is just a fancy way of saying this thing here. And what that's for, it's for things like rotation. If I'm just going to rotate, see how it's rotating around that point like that? I'll Apple Z that. If I scale it, it'll scale in reference to that point, which is a real pain. It's not what we want. What we want it to scale from the middle here. So I want to move this anchor point up here. Now this is a bit technical early on, but sometimes the anchor point will be here, or it'll be, you've got to check that first. So I'm just going to grab this anchor point thing down here like that, and I'm just going to drag this second number. See how I'm dragging this second number to the left like that? And you'll see how the type is now coming in, reference to that anchor point. And now, if I rotate it or do anything with it, it rotates around the middle, which is exactly what we want. Now, that was a bit technical to start with, but it's always a good idea to check your anchor point where it is before you start to animate, because you'll get some very strange results if you don't. Okay, having done that, I'm just going to move this up into position to about here. I'm going to close up these transform things like that. Now, I'm going to duplicate that layer, Command D or Control D on the PC. Now I've got two layers. I should have selected it first and then Command D. I've got two layers. Okay, just going to grab that and drag that down like this. And the second one is going to be Create, like that. Now the reason I duplicate is because now the anchor point's been moved. I don't have to worry about it in this one too. Okay, like that. And I know that has to be 385. I actually know the word design. If I select the design layer again, I'm going to make that 400 point. And why I'm doing that is just to make them so they line up left and right, like this. Design, create. And if I click on that layer, you'll see there's my anchor point. That's where I want it to be, right in the middle, like that. And if you twirl this down, you'll notice that it's got exactly the same properties that the other layers got. And that's what we do in After Effects. We animate these properties using this timeline. Okay, that's a very simple way of looking at it. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select that layer and duplicate it again. And I might move this down a little bit. I'll grab that and just drag it down with the Shift key. And I'm going to type in the word share, like this. And I know that the share, because I've worked this out before, it has to be 440 point. These are not guesses, like that. Okay. So now what I've got, let's have a look what I've done. I'll just zoom in and out, Apple plus or Apple minus to zoom in and out like that. If you have a look, I now have a 3 lines of type, and they're not in great position like that. I'm going to select them, move them up a little bit. I'm holding the Shift key down to do that, as you would in any other application, like this. And they're looking pretty good. I might move this one across. I'm just using the arrows to nudge those into place like that. So let's have a look what we've done. We've set up for an animation. We haven't done any animation. We simply have imported some assets. We've created a composition, which is just a period of time. In this case, we've made it 15 seconds long. We're only going to use this for about 5 seconds, or even less than that. But it's always a good idea to make your compositions longer than you think they should be, because you can always trim them at the end. And then we set some type. We simply select the type tool like that and click anywhere on the stage and type what you want it to say. And over here, you can change whatever properties you want. For example, they're much the same as InDesign or any of the other Adobe applications. And you can animate these things over time as well. Okay, so there it is. It's set up and it's ready to be animated. And that's what we'll do in the next video. Okay, thanks for watching.